Welcome to our journey into the legend of Atlantis, a story that has fascinated humanity for centuries. Atlantis, often described as a lost continent or a vanished civilization, is most famously recounted by the philosopher Plato in his dialogues Critias and Timaeus. These ancient texts have inspired countless theories, debates, and even expeditions in search of the fabled land. But what is the true story behind Atlantis? Is it a historical reality, a philosophical allegory, or a blend of both? In this video, we will explore the origins of the Atlantis myth, its cultural significance, and the enduring mysteries that surround it. Let's begin by understanding how Plato's account laid the foundation for all subsequent tales of Atlantis. Plato's dialogues, Critias and Timaeus, are the earliest and most influential sources on Atlantis. According to Plato, Atlantis was a powerful and advanced civilization that existed thousands of years before his own time. The story is presented as a historical account passed down from Solon, the Athenian lawmaker, who learned of Atlantis during his travels in Egypt. Egyptian priests described Atlantis as a mighty empire that attempted to conquer the known world but was ultimately destroyed by cataclysmic events. Plato's narrative is rich with allegory and symbolism, prompting scholars to debate whether he intended Atlantis as a literal place or a philosophical lesson about hubris and the fall of civilizations. The tale of Atlantis was passed down through generations before reaching Plato. Solon, the legendary Athenian statesman and poet, is said to have heard the story from Egyptian priests in Sais. He intended to immortalize it in epic poetry, but his political duties prevented him from doing so. Instead, the story was shared with his friend Dropes, who passed it to his son Critias, and then to his grandson, also named Critias, who became a disciple of Socrates. This chain of transmission adds a layer of authenticity to Plato's account, though it also raises questions about embellishment and interpretation over time. According to Plato, Atlantis was a vast island empire located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, known today as the Strait of Gibraltar. The Atlanteans were powerful, ruling over many islands and parts of the continents, including regions of Europe and Africa. Their ambition led them to attempt the conquest of the Mediterranean world, but their pride and moral decline ultimately brought about their downfall. Catastrophic earthquakes and floods destroyed Atlantis in a single day and night, submerging it beneath the sea and erasing its glory from the earth. Plato's story describes how the gods divided the earth among themselves, with Poseidon, god of the sea, receiving the island of Atlantis. The land was inhabited by primitive people, but Poseidon fell in love with a mortal woman named Cleito. To protect her, he transformed the landscape, creating concentric rings of land and water around her home. Poseidon fathered 10 sons with Cleito, dividing the island into 10 kingdoms, each ruled by one of his descendants. The eldest, Atlas, became the supreme king, and the island was named after him. Atlantis was renowned for its extraordinary wealth and beauty. The Atlanteans built magnificent palaces, temples, and harbors, adorned with gold, silver, and a mysterious red metal called orichalcum. The central island, or Acropolis, was the heart of the empire, housing the grand temple of Poseidon and Cleito, surrounded by golden walls. The city's architecture and engineering surpassed anything known in the ancient world, with bridges, canals, and irrigation systems that made the land fertile and prosperous. The Atlantean society was highly organized, with citizens divided into communities based on their land and status. Each community had a leader, and all were governed by the 10 kings, who ruled as absolute monarchs but were bound by Poseidon's laws. These laws emphasized unity, mutual aid, and the prohibition of internal conflict. The kings consulted together on matters of war and peace, and no king could execute a relative without the consent of the majority. This system fostered peace and prosperity for generations. For centuries, Atlantis thrived in a golden age of virtue and abundance. The people practiced wisdom, self-control, and kindness, valuing virtue above luxury. Their wealth grew through friendship and cooperation, not greed. The Atlanteans were skilled in agriculture, mining, and trade, and their influence extended across the known world. This era of harmony and enlightenment became the model for later utopian visions in Western thought. Over time, the divine nature of the Atlanteans faded and human weaknesses took hold. Greed, ambition, and the desire for conquest replaced virtue and wisdom. The Atlanteans sought to expand their empire through force, losing sight of true happiness. This moral decline set the stage for their eventual destruction as the gods watched with growing disapproval. Zeus, the king of the gods, observed the corruption of Atlantis from his celestial throne. Distressed by their fall from grace, he summoned the other gods to decide the fate of the Atlanteans. Although Plato's account ends before Zeus's speech, it is clear that divine retribution was imminent. The destruction of Atlantis was seen as a punishment for their hubris and moral decay, a warning to all civilizations about the dangers of pride and excess. The destruction of Atlantis was sudden and total. In a single day and night, earthquakes and floods consumed the island, dragging it beneath the sea. The once great civilization vanished without a trace, leaving only legends and the ruins of memory. The sea where Atlantis once stood became impassable, choked with mud and debris. This dramatic ending has fueled centuries of speculation and inspired countless stories of lost worlds. Beyond Plato, other ancient writers referenced Atlantis or similar lost lands. Historians like Theopompus and Marcellus described continents and islands in the Atlantic Ocean, sometimes mentioning 7 small islands and 3 large ones. These accounts, though fragmentary, suggest that the idea of a vanished land in the Atlantic was widespread in the ancient world. The Azores, for example, are sometimes considered remnants of Atlantis. Some researchers have looked to the Americas for clues about Atlantis. The Mayan Trono Codex describes a land destroyed by catastrophe, and similarities between Mayan and Egyptian symbols have been noted. The Aztec word Atl means water, and their calendar includes a month associated with rain and floods. These linguistic and cultural parallels have led some to speculate that Atlantis influenced or was connected to ancient American civilizations. The origin of the word Atlantis has puzzled scholars. It does not have a clear etymology in Greek or any known Old World language. Some believe it derives from the Nahuatl word Atl, meaning water, suggesting a possible link to ancient American languages. This linguistic mystery adds another layer to the enigma of Atlantis, hinting at forgotten connections between distant cultures. Many Native American tribes have legends of a great flood or a lost homeland across the sea. The Shawnee, for example, claim their ancestors crossed the ocean, and annual ceremonies commemorate a mysterious deliverance from disaster. These traditions may preserve distant memories of ancient migrations or cataclysms, echoing the Atlantis myth in a new cultural context. The story of a great flood is nearly universal, appearing in the traditions of the Greeks, Egyptians, Native Americans, Chinese, and many others. While the details differ, the core theme is the destruction of an earlier world and the survival of a chosen few. These myths may reflect real geological events, collective memories of ancient disasters, or symbolic tales of renewal and rebirth. In Mexican and Native American traditions, the origin of peoples is often symbolized by 7 caves or cities. These are sometimes interpreted as islands or continents, and the number 7 recurs in many Atlantis-related myths. The legend of the 7 cities of Cibola, sought by Spanish explorers, may be a distant echo of these ancient stories. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent deity of Mesoamerica, is often linked to Atlantis in esoteric traditions. The rulers of Atlantis were said to be serpent kings, and the serpent symbol appears in myths from the Americas to the Mediterranean. Some legends describe the fall of the serpent as a metaphor for the fall of Atlantis, blending myth, history, and spiritual symbolism. Arab geographers referred to Atlantis as the Dragon Island, and Portuguese legends speak of the Ilha de Sete Cidades, or Island of 7 Cities. These stories often feature mysterious rulers, magical creatures, and lost civilizations. The dragon or serpent motif is a recurring symbol of power, wisdom, and sometimes destruction, linking Atlantis to a broader mythological tradition. Some scholars, including early Neoplatonists, viewed the story of Atlantis as a philosophical allegory rather than literal history. In this interpretation, Atlantis represents the soul's descent into matter, the struggle between spirit and materialism, and the consequences of moral decline. The destruction of Atlantis becomes a metaphor for the loss of spiritual wisdom and the dangers of pride. The Orphic tradition, a foundation of Greek philosophy, divided the universe into 3 realms: the supreme world of pure truth, the higher world of divine principles, and the lower world of material forms. In this cosmology, Atlantis symbolizes the middle realm, a place of creation and transformation. The story's structure mirrors the journey of the soul through different states of being. In ancient cosmology, Zeus was seen as embodying 3 aspects: the intellectual air, the generative water, and the material earth. These correspond to the 3 realms of existence and the 3 main gods: Zeus air, Poseidon water, and Hades earth. Atlantis, as Poseidon's realm, represents the generative creative force in the universe, bridging the spiritual and material worlds. The creation of Atlantis is described in terms of the tetractys, a mystical symbol of 10 points arranged in a triangle. This symbol, central to Pythagorean philosophy, represents the principles of creation and order in the universe. Poseidon's 10 sons, the rulers of Atlantis, mirror the 10 points of the tetractys, each embodying a cosmic law or force. At the heart of Atlantis stood a great mountain, the symbolic axis of the world. In many mythologies, a central mountain or pillar represents the connection between heaven and earth. In Atlantis, this mountain was the site of the main temple and the seat of power, echoing similar motifs in Egyptian, Greek, and Norse traditions. One of the most distinctive features of Atlantis was its layout, concentric rings of land and water perfectly engineered for defense and beauty. This design symbolized harmony and balance, reflecting the Atlanteans' mastery of both nature and architecture. The central island was surrounded by alternating rings, connected by bridges and canals. As the Atlanteans lost their virtue, the harmony of their society began to unravel. The once unified kings grew divided, and the laws of Poseidon were neglected. The pursuit of power and luxury replaced the values that had sustained their civilization. This moral decline is a recurring theme in myths of lost golden ages. In Plato's narrative, the Atlanteans attempted to conquer Greece and other Mediterranean lands. The Greeks, though outnumbered, resisted bravely and ultimately prevailed. This conflict symbolizes the struggle between order and chaos, virtue and corruption, and the triumph of moral strength over brute force. The destruction of Atlantis is described in vivid, almost apocalyptic terms. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and floods overwhelmed the land, and the sea swallowed the island. Survivors fled to other lands, carrying with them memories and legends of their lost home. The catastrophe became a symbol of divine retribution and the fragility of human achievement. Some esoteric traditions interpret Atlantis as the original homeland of humanity. According to these views, the story of Atlantis is a metaphor for the descent of the soul into the material world. The lost continent represents a forgotten spiritual state, and the journey to recover it is the quest for self-knowledge and enlightenment. Numbers play a significant role in the Atlantis myth. The number 10, representing Poseidon's sons, and the number 7, symbolizing islands or cities, recur throughout the story. Esoteric numerology links the number 64 to the totality of creation, as seen in the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching and the symbolic population lost in the flood. The legend of Atlantis has left a profound mark on Western culture. From Renaissance mapmakers who included Atlantis on their globes to modern writers and filmmakers, the story continues to inspire dreams of lost worlds and hidden knowledge. Atlantis serves as a symbol of both human potential and the dangers of pride and excess. Modern geology and oceanography have explored the possibility of lost continents in the Atlantic. The discovery of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and similarities in flora and fauna on both sides of the ocean have fueled speculation. While no definitive evidence of Atlantis has been found, the idea remains plausible enough to intrigue scientists and enthusiasts alike. In 1915, French geologist Pierre Termier presented evidence supporting the existence of a sunken landmass in the Atlantic. His findings, published in the Smithsonian Institution's annual report, highlighted geological features like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and volcanic ash deposits. These observations suggest that large areas of the ocean floor were once above water, lending some scientific credibility to the Atlantis legend. Botanical and zoological evidence points to ancient connections between the Americas, Europe, and Africa. Plants like cotton and bananas and similar animal species are found on both sides of the Atlantic. These facts have led some to propose the existence of prehistoric land bridges or sunken continents, possibly including Atlantis. Anthropologist Leo Frobenius argued that traces of Atlantean civilization could be found in West Africa, particularly among the Yoruba people. He noted similarities in art, architecture, and religious beliefs, suggesting a deep connection between Africa and the lost world of Atlantis. This theory highlights the global reach of the Atlantis myth and its potential historical roots. Frobenius described Atlantis as the Emporium of the West, a center of culture and trade beyond the Pillars of Hercules. He identified features like advanced agriculture, metallurgy, and monumental architecture as evidence of a sophisticated civilization. While his ideas remain controversial, they add depth to the ongoing search for Atlantis. A 1937 U.S. government bulletin reviewed the Atlantis hypothesis, noting geological and biological evidence for a lost continent in the Atlantic. The report discussed the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, similarities in plant and animal life, and the plausibility of catastrophic events that could have submerged a large landmass. While cautious, the bulletin did not dismiss the possibility of Atlantis. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge is a massive underwater mountain range stretching from the Arctic to the Southern Ocean. Some researchers believe it marks the location of Atlantis, as its peaks rise above the ocean as islands like the Azores. The ridge's geological features suggest it was once above sea level, supporting theories of a sunken continent. The Atlantis story resonates with myths from around the world, tales of lost lands, sunken cities, and vanished civilizations. From Lemuria in the Indian Ocean to Mu in the Pacific, humanity has always dreamed of forgotten worlds. These stories reflect our longing for origins, meaning, and the hope of rediscovery. Atlantis has inspired countless works of art, literature, and film. From early maps to modern movies, the image of a sunken city continues to captivate the imagination. The legend has become a metaphor for lost knowledge, utopian dreams, and the dangers of technological hubris. For many, Atlantis is more than a lost land. It is a symbol of spiritual wisdom and the quest for enlightenment. Esoteric traditions see Atlantis as a stage in the evolution of the soul, a reminder of humanity's higher potential and the need to balance material progress with inner growth. Manly P. Hall and other thinkers distinguish between the historical and philosophical Atlantis. The historical Atlantis is a lost continent, while the philosophical Atlantis is an allegory for the mysteries of existence. Plato's story contains elements of both, inviting us to seek truth not only in the world but within ourselves. The legend of Atlantis serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of pride, greed, and the misuse of power. Its destruction reminds us that even the greatest civilizations can fall if they lose sight of virtue and wisdom. This message remains relevant in our own time as we face challenges of our own making. The dream of Atlantis endures because it speaks to our deepest hopes and fears. It is a story of lost greatness but also of the possibility of renewal. As long as we seek knowledge, wisdom, and harmony, the spirit of Atlantis lives on in our imagination and our quest for a better world. In the end, Atlantis remains a mystery, part history, part myth, and part allegory. Its story invites us to reflect on the rise and fall of civilizations, the power of imagination, and the eternal search for meaning. Whether Atlantis was real or symbolic, its legacy continues to inspire us to look beyond the surface and seek the deeper truths of our world and ourselves.